Learn outbound method keeps this pointing to the correct object in callbacks. So this example displays a person's full name after 3 seconds using set timeout while correctly preserving the this keyword. So I will refresh so that you see how it works again. After 3 seconds, it will display a person's name. So let's go ahead and build this together. So here's my boilerplate code, and what we are about to do is just an example of how we can fix the loss of this keyword with the bind method in JavaScript function. I have an outline of the steps to follow here in order to create the code that we will use. Number one says create a person object, then add a display method, bind display to person, store it in a variable, pass it to set timeout, and display result after 3 seconds. So in this 6 step, we can easily make an example that will preserve the loss of this in our function. So let's move on. Now, the first thing is to create a person object. So I'll go ahead and make a person's object. And inside this person's object, I will add a first name. Then I'm also going to add the last name. Then I want to add a method inside this function. And then inside this function, then I want to get the ID of an element where I want to make changes. So what I'm doing is that I am picking the ID of this space where I want my changes to show. Now I have stored it in a variable. Now I can then use this property of inner.html to change the content when I have data to show inside it. So you can see that my this keyword here is referring to this object. So I am using it, I'm binding it to the first name and then the last name of this person's object that I have. Now, if I come outside of this object, then I can add a variable and call it display name. And inside this variable, what do I want to do? I want to call this person's object with a display function that I have inside it as the method, and then bind it to the person's object so as to be able to preserve the this part inside of it. Now I can now set timeout and then call the function as a callback and pass the function as a callback again. And now you see what's happening. Now you can see John Doe. Now in the previous example, now when this bind was not attached, if I remove the bind and then use and then call it directly this way, well, this is also giving us what we want. But if we have just something like this, now you can see that nothing exactly is shown forward again. So the purpose of the bind method here is that it locks a function to an object. So this that we have here always refers to that object, even when used in callbacks like set timeout. So what this example does is that it displays a person's full name after 3 seconds using set timeout while correctly preserving this. So let's try and refresh this page and see if it displays after 3 seconds for real. 1, 2, 3. And then you can see that the name is popping up as you can see it on the screen. So this person's object and this person dot display here is linked to this person object here using the bind method. So a new method is created, a new function is created with this, and then the set timeout runs that function later. This that we have here still points to the person and then names display correctly. Now, here are some key takeaways from this lesson. The bind method prevents this loss. So the bind method that we have here to this person prevents the loss of the this or this object. It is useful for callback, as you can see that it helps us to preserve the first name and last name and return the correct name on the output. And then it returns a new function with fixed content. Now, here we use the bind method to attach the display function to the person object. So even when set timeout runs it later, this still points to the person. Because of the presence of the bind method, it helps us lock the function to its object. The thing is that bind method does not change the original function. It creates a new one with a preserved context. And this is how JavaScript handles reliable context in asynchronous code. Now you might want to ask that, what then is the usefulness of this bind method in callbacks? The bind method is a call tool for controlling this when functions are outside their original object in JavaScript.